That's fantastic to see so many people. I'm really pleased to be here. I am going to talk tonight mostly about Roman roads on the Tendring Peninsula, which of course is where we are. I was going to say move as far forward as you can because it's a bit of a small screen, but there aren't many chairs. But if you can't see, if you can find your way closer, then that would be good. I'm mostly going to be showing maps tonight, and some of the things on the maps are not that clear, but anyway, we'll press on. So, I am a Yorkshireman, actually, but I've lived in Colchester since the 70s. I'm an ex-electronic engineer, did electronic engineering at Essex University and never managed to quite get away from there, which is okay. And I retired about 10 years ago, and one of the reasons I retired early, I was lucky. One of the reasons I retired was so that I could get into archaeology.
It's a bit low on the microphone. It might be better if you held it away from you.
Okay. Is that better?
Slightly.
How about that?
That's better.
Yeah? Can everyone hear that? Yeah? Okay. Right, I'll try and do that. Okay, so thanks very much to Beth for inviting me. One of my passions these days is Roman roads. I've been the chairman of the Roman Roads study group in Colchester for the last 8 years, actually. I've just resigned from that post because I'm now starting an Eastern Region group for the Roman Roads Research Association, which is a national association, basically to look at Roman roads in the east of England, and the aim is to have a website where archaeologists and historians, anyone that wants to know about Roman roads in their area can have a look on this website. And I'm in charge of that, apparently. Okay, so what we'll do tonight, I'll talk to you about the Roman roads that I'm aware of from various sources, and we'll have a look at a few things like crop marks. This, I'm sure some of you know, some of you won't know, this is a thing called LiDAR. So this is Tendring. We're down here in Clacton, okay? Jaywick's along here, Brighton Sea up there, there's Mersey Island, and Colchester's up there somewhere. So this is pretty much the Tendring Peninsula, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about LiDAR in a minute, but as you can see there, it gives you a very great view of the topography of the land, and there's a lot of other stuff that we can see with LiDAR as well. At the end of the talk, I'm going to take about 10 minutes just to talk about what we've been doing at Jaywick for the last couple of years, or the last year, geophysics, because there's quite interesting stuff been going on there. Some of you will know about it, others won't. Hopefully you'll find that interesting. This is another view, this is also LiDAR, but this is a different view. You notice here that you can't really see the high and low points, but what this is giving us is what we call relief. So this shows the high spots and the low spots on the ground. This bit here, this squiggle here, that's a road. I think that's probably A133 coming into Clacton. And the white bits are the banks at the side of the road. So anything that's lighter, whiter, is slightly higher, and the darker bits, so in here, this is Holland Brook, I think. That's lower, so that shows darker. Okay, and we can use this to follow Roman roads, but it's also good for a lot of different types of archaeology, because if you've got a slight rise in the ground with a wall underneath it or something, it shows up on here. Okay. This is the same view, which I'm sure you recognise. This is on Google Earth. I'm sure at least some of you will have looked at Google Earth, and most of you probably use Google Maps these days to find your way around when you're driving. This is the satellite view, so you can see all the fields and so on. Again, wonderful view of the Walton backwaters. And I use this a lot as well because this shows up what we call crop marks, okay? And I'll explain to you what those are in a minute as well. So this isn't showing up very well, but those blue lines there, so here, and so on, these are known, or what our ancestors thought were Roman roads in this area, so according to historical records. Okay, and to a large extent, this is accurate. So that road there from Misty towards Colchester, we know is there. This road down here, which is actually heading towards Jaywick. There's a lot of traces of that, which we'll look at. This road probably is there. That's heading towards Beaumont Quay. I can't find any traces of it, but I haven't really had time to look that carefully. And also this road here, don't know what that's supposed to be, but again, very little, or actually no real evidence for that today. There are anecdotal notes about a road going across to Fingringhoe, across the River Cove. Don't know if any of you have ever come across that. Again, I can't find any trace of that. But there are traces of roads on the peninsula, and we're going to see those tonight. In terms of the modern interpretation of where the roads are, just excuse me a moment. This is gin and tonic, by the way. This is probably the most accurate and up-to-date map of Roman roads in Essex. It actually covers the whole of East Anglia. If anyone's interested, you can see this. It's online at this address here, Twitter, which means Travels with Romans. This chap, David Ratledge, he's the guy that creates all of this. He's one of my colleagues in the Roman Roads Research Association. So he's done a lot of work on roads in this area. But you'll see, this is, again, Tendring Peninsula. He's got these two roads, and then a little bit here, and not a lot else. So I'll show you that there is actually quite a lot else. But this is as far as David's got. So what does a Roman road in this part of the world look like? Roman roads throughout the Roman Empire were different depending on where they were because of the raw materials that they used to make them. Okay, the Romans were very pragmatic people. They're not going to ship slabs from the other side of the Roman Empire just to build a Roman road. They would use the materials that they had to hand. In this part of the country, in East Anglia, there's very little natural rock, okay, stone. Basically, we've got a little bit at Harwich, I think, Septaria, which you may have heard of. Otherwise, basically, we have flints and we have gravel. This is a very typical bit of Roman road. This is in Colchester, and it is made basically from rammed gravel. Okay, that's the surface of the road. So these people that talk about roads having several layers of, you know, this and then that and then the other, and then on the top you've got paving slabs, rather like you see in Pompeii. You don't get that in this area because there's no stone. It's all gravel. Okay. I love this picture. I didn't take this picture, but it's from a few years ago. This is actually again in Colchester. This is what's called the Via Principia. So it's the main road in Colchester, the main Roman road, and it's actually made up of 9 distinct layers. Okay, and they're all gravel. Basically, what's happened here is the road started down here. And then after, say, 50 years or whatever, it starts to wear out, it gets ruts and it's falling to bits. They come along and they put a new layer. And so on and so on and so on. This here, I believe, is a wheel rut. Okay, so You know, you can imagine them drawing horse and carts up and down the roads. The wheels always follow the same part of the road, so you end up with ruts. And you can see how this is piled up. This is Stefania, who is not the tallest girl in the world, but you can see how high it's up to her shoulders. And what that tended to, that caused was that the houses and shops and so on alongside the road would gradually get lower and lower down because the road level was gradually coming up. So you see that a lot in Roman towns. How do you find a Roman road? You know, what does a Roman road look like? Well, one of the things that we use a lot is crop marks. Okay, crop marks. If you don't know, you can have a look on the internet. I haven't got time to explain it all to you tonight, but you see these lines here. They are caused by ditches which are buried below ground, and those ditches hold water. Okay, so when we get a hot, dry summer like we had in 2018, for instance, the crops to either side start to dry out, but the ones over the ditches are still growing because their roots get down to the water which is collected in these buried ditches. This is a Roman road. This is on the Tendring Peninsula over to the northwest. This road goes from Mistley towards Colchester. Okay, we'll talk about that a bit later. You'll notice also there's a nice little circle there. Yeah, that's again a ditch around a Bronze Age burial, and it's quite unusual actually for the Romans to build a road through a Bronze Age burial mound. The burial mounds in Roman times, the Bronze Age and so on, would still have been standing. There was no reason for anyone to knock them down, and the Romans, generally speaking, would go around them. But in this case, for some reason, they haven't. Also, see this dark blob here, and you can see other little dark blobs. Those are called borrow pits, and that's where they've dug. The Romans have dug the gravel out of the ground to make the road. So they basically dug the material to make the road surface out of the ground as they went along. Okay? Because carrying gravel any distance, as anyone who's tried to do it will know, is not an easy thing to do. And I've said here it's approximately 15 metres between the ditches. Okay, when you think about that, that's actually quite wide. But the road surface itself is probably only about 5 metres or thereabouts. So there's a big gap between the edges of the road and the ditches. Nobody really knows why that is. The ditches are not drainage ditches. They're some sort of demarcation. So, you know, inside is the property of the Roman military keep out or something like that, but we don't really know. Here we've got LiDAR again. The road we've just been looking at is on there. I've said oops. Can you spot it? I think the answer is probably no, because the screen's not big enough and we haven't got enough contrast. But if I move forward, one of the things that you can do with the LiDAR is you can process the image. So all I've done there is turn the contrast up, make the blacks blacker and the whites whiter, and hopefully you can now, well, you can see all the roads and the field boundaries and the ditches and so on. That's what LiDAR shows you. Okay, it's very, very useful to us. And there are 2 Roman roads on there. There's one. Can you see that? I hope I'm not standing in your way. See that very light grey line there? Okay, dead straight. All straight roads are Roman, as we all know, and all Roman roads are straight. Well, I mean, that's true to a certain extent, not always. And then, there's another one, okay? Can you see that? That one actually shows it a bit better. Again, grey line. And this bit here is a modern road, which is following the line of the Roman road. Okay? That happens occasionally, not always. And so this road is going from Mistley up here on the banks of the Stour towards Colchester. This road is going across towards Harwich and Dovercourt. And we can't actually trace it all the way, but it's quite clear that that's where it's going to. Okay, so this is one of the main ways that we have these days of finding Roman roads, because on LiDAR you can see them as clear as day if they're still there. So what is LiDAR? LiDAR is very technical, but basically it stands for light detection and ranging, and it's a laser, scans the ground, and the laser measures the distance to the ground and back again to the aeroplane, and it can measure differences in height of about 5 centimetres or something like that. It's absolutely amazing, very, very clever. And this is done by the Department of the Environment. They're looking for flood risks and that sort of thing. And they've now released it, so you can actually download this information for free. And I've put there, if you're interested, if you look for lidarfinder.com, you can see this. One of the things about LiDAR is it can see through trees. Basically, it gets the laser light gets between the leaves of the trees, and that's really useful because a lot of Roman roads really show up in wooded areas because they haven't been ploughed. So that's useful. Anyway, if you're interested in LiDAR, do look it up online. Something else that we use, but we haven't really used, or at least I'm not aware of anyone using it around here, but geophysics. I'm sure many of you have heard of geophysics, especially if you've watched Time Team. This is, I just like to show this because this is Verulamium. Whoops. Verulamium is the Roman town at St Albans. Okay, and one of my colleagues, Chris Lockyer from UCL, has been mapping this. This is about 1 kilometre across, so half a mile or something. And you can see it's just like a map. But that is all done with geophysics. Okay? No holes are being dug. One day somebody's going to come along and dig all of that up, and it's going to be like, well, bigger than that. But at the moment, it's all buried. This, just here, this is the Roman road, and then it carries on over there. And that's Roman Watling Street. Okay? But as I say, we haven't really done much or any of that in this part of Essex that I'm aware of. Okay, so these are the roads, according to modern records, these are the roads that I'm pretty sure are there. So there's the road from Missley up there towards Colchester. That's the one that we just looked at, going through Horsley Cross Street. Notice crossroads there. Now that's something that people just don't notice. Okay, David Ratledge with the website that we saw earlier, he hasn't got a crossroads there, but it's definitely there. And in fact, you can trace the road a little bit further, and then you get to Ardley Reservoir, so it disappears. But that's interesting. This bit of road, here is Elmstead Market, and this road is coming. You can trace it on and off, all the way down to Jaywick. Okay, and of course St Osoph here. There's almost certainly a road going off towards St Osoph, but we haven't found that yet. This one's interesting too. We're going to look at this one. This one is coming down between Wheeley and Tendring, and probably finds its way to Walton. I imagine it was going towards Walton on the Maze, but not sure. And then I put this one, as I said, this is the road going to Beaumont Quay, which is almost certainly there, but I haven't had time to look for it. So if anybody fancies having a go at doing that, you're very welcome to. And there are the same roads on the satellite view. Okay, you'll notice this little blue rectangle here. That is the Roman walled town of Colchester. Okay, Camulodunum or Colonia Vitricensis, whatever you want to call it. I put that in there because it's a bit of a sort of marker, and also it's quite important later on in the talk. So let's look at the roads. We've got two roads which are starting in Elmstead Market, and they almost certainly come from Colchester, but there's not a clear route there. So I'm going to talk you through between Elmstead and Freighting and Wheeling. Before we start, This is the crop mark. Elmstead Church, okay, which you probably know is not in Elmstead Market. It's outside. There are interesting reasons for that sort of thing to happen. But basically the church is built on a Bronze Age cemetery, okay? All these rings here are Bronze Age burials. And then the lines are almost certainly ditches which were put there in the Iron Age. So you've got continuity of sanctity. I used to say continuity of sacredness, and then my wife said, no, it's not sacredness, it's sanctity. But it's a sacred area, and even in modern times, that continues. And we find this a lot, all over the country, okay? Nothing to do with Roman roads. The Roman road is nowhere near there, but this gives you an idea of the sort of things that we can see. So this is a satellite view of Elmstead Market. This is Beth Chatto Garden Centre here. I'm sure some of you will have been there. You drive down a long avenue and there are two kind of paddocks on either side. And the Roman road from Colchester to Jaywick goes across those paddocks. Okay, we'll see that in a minute. Interesting, I hope you can see it. There's also a little Roman road there which branches off. And we'll see more about that in a minute. This is a shot taken from Google Earth. Anyone, you need to look at Google Earth Pro, but if you want to look at these things, anyone can download the Google Earth app, and off you go, and it's wonderful. I had the privilege of working with Colchester Archaeological Trust, CAT, in Elmstead Market. I've been there 2 or 3 times, and this is a plan that the archaeologists had of a field, which we'll see in a minute, and all these sort of large black lines are what we call evaluation trenches, or eval trenches. They go into the field and they put all these trenches in, as you see there, and see what they find. And the reason they're doing that is because they're going to build houses here, which is what they're doing everywhere. But at least they're going in there and doing an investigation. This is interesting because it's got, see these 2 lines here? That's that Roman road that I was mentioning on the last slide. This is heading towards Elmstead Church, okay? And the rest of the road you can't see on here. But if I go forward, like, that's what the trench looks like. That's a drone shot that I took whilst the guys were doing their evaluation. I'm sure you've seen that. You see this a lot in this area because there's so much development work going on. And very often they go into the field because they think there might be archaeology there, and they go and have a rootle about. And it's a good thing they did that here, because they did find stuff. So what I've done here, this is the same image from Google Earth, okay? There are 2 paddocks, Beth Chatto down here. This is that map that I showed you, overlaying the field. This is Lansdowne, is it Lansdowne? The development just outside Elmstead Market. I think it's called Lansdowne. So this is on the other side of the road. And what you can see here, there's the Roman road that goes across that field. These 2 green lines here, turning to purple there, that is the Roman road. Okay, that's going from somewhere up here, and before that probably Colchester, and that's finding its way all the way down to Jaywick. Okay, and we can see that just here in crop marks. Okay, it also shows up on LiDAR. I haven't got enough time tonight to show you all of these different things, but that is the kind of work that I do for tracing Roman roads. I find all the sources of information that I can and try and piece it all together. This is interesting. That little bit of Roman road there, okay? This is what's left of the roadside ditch, or one of the roadside ditches. So it's a bit difficult to see here, but this is one of those evaluation trenches. There's one edge of it, there's the other. That's the spoil heap on the side of the trench. And this is part of the ditch. This is all that's left of the ditch. So above that level there has all been ploughed, okay, down to a depth of about 40 centimetres, something like that. So everything above that level, any archaeology, including the road surface, has gone, okay? It's disappeared. This is all that's left, and this is about 15 centimetres deep, okay? And that is enough to create a crop block. The water sits in there, the crops above it, the roots get down there, and they can carry on growing in the summer, whereas the crops around them can't, okay? So that's what causes this crop block. Okay, so that road finds its way to near Freighting, okay, and is heading down towards Jerwick and St Joseph. So we've got LiDAR here again. You can see all the roads there, all these lines. These are modern roads. There is a Roman road there, which actually even I can't see it, but I know where it is. If we go forward, that on LiDAR, I'll go back again, you might just be able to see it. Let me go forward again. Now what I've done here, this is what I call enhanced LiDAR, okay? Basically again, turn the contrast up, and you see how suddenly all the lumps and bumps on the ground show up, okay? Down here, Chris over here found a nice little feature at Angers Green. You just see it there. We'll have a look at that in a minute. It shows up on the LiDAR. If I go one more. Now, hopefully, can you see that grey line? Yeah? No? I hope at least some of you can. That is the Roman road. That's what's left of a road that was put in there nearly 2,000 years ago. That's all that there is. It's just a very, very slight rise in the ground. The rest of it's gone. And that's what I and other road and roads chasers are looking for, to try and figure out where they all are. I mentioned that down here there is I mean you probably can't see it, but it's a Romano-British enclosure. We'll look at that in a minute, but just have a look. See all this lot up here? I wonder what that is. Those are all just very, very slight bumps in the ground. They're not field boundaries. You've got a curve there. I don't know, there's another one somewhere. Can't see it now. But this is the power of LiDAR. This is showing up all the little details on the ground. And this is great for archaeologists. Okay, that's Chris's enclosure. So this is probably a Roman marching camp. Okay, two things that give it away. One is that it's got curved corners, and really only the Romans ever did that. And this, you see the entrance here, is offset, and the reason for that is that it's easier to defend. And again, that's very much a Roman thing. And I wonder whether this is some kind of defensive feature in front of it as well. As far as I'm aware, this has never been excavated. It's virtually been forgotten about until Chris over here discovered it in a book. You can still see this on crop marks, and as I just showed you, you can see it on LiDAR. It's still there. Okay. One day somebody will probably come along and try and build houses on top of it. Well, let's hope not, but we'll see. Okay, so between kind of Angers Green near Thorrington, there are little bits of the road that you can see. We haven't got time to go through all of it, but then when you get down here, this is Jerwick, this is Sackett's Grove, and this is how I met Beth, I think. There's a little bit of Roman road there. If I move on, again, very, very difficult to see, but there are two lines there, dead straight, and they are heading towards the golf course. Not Miller's Barn, but the golf course down by the beach. We talked to Teresa O'Connor, I think, at the Essex Heritage Environment, and she agreed that that's a Roman road, and so it was put into their records. So you can see there, that's very, very faint. That's all that's left of the road. But it's definitely a Roman road. And in fact, they've now built chalets over the top of that. So they haven't dug it up, but it's actually being protected by holiday chalets. Okay, so the road that I showed you on the map earlier, that's going from sort of Elmsted Market towards Bolton, this is the road. This is, again, David Ratledge on that Travels with Romans website, and he reckons that this is the route of that road, okay? And I looked at this and I thought, well, maybe. So there's a little bit up here. That looks like a field boundary. This is a field boundary. There's a bit here and a bit there. I wasn't convinced. But then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to start looking at it. And this is the map. Okay, so this is the road we've just been looking at, going down to Jaywick. That's the main road. And this is David's road heading towards Wheeling, basically. On the way, it passes this. Now, I don't know whether any of you have seen this before. I'm sure some of you have. It's actually quite a famous site. This is an Iron Age, or almost certainly Iron Age, so pre-Roman. If it was on a hill, you'd call it a hill fort. It's not on a hill, but that's the nearest that we get in this part of the world to the hill fort. There are some fantastic marks here. There's a little row of dots there. I guess you probably can't see that, but if anybody wants a copy of this, let me know and I'll let them have it. They're almost certain post holes from what would it be? A late Iron Age or possibly early Roman house. Posts and then a roof, that sort of thing. And then you've got this. Okay, a thick line and a thinner line. Okay, and that's the Roman road. If I go back, that is there. Okay, so that was picked up by David Ratledge. Okay, interestingly, I can't actually see it myself now, but there are two lines there. Can you see those? Okay, they're exactly the same width between. So that is, I think, where somebody got it wrong. They started building the road in the wrong direction. It was going to go straight through the Iron Age enclosure. Someone came along and said, "Hey, hang on, guys, you're in the wrong place. That's where it should have been." Okay. Everybody, right throughout history, people made mistakes, and I think that's possibly what happened there. Okay. The next thing that I did was to look at another thing online, another website, which is called Aerial Archaeology Mapping Explorer, a bit of a mouthful. This is run by Heritage England, I think, and this is where they've marked all the known crop marks that they know that's in the Heritage Environment record. Okay, so there's our Iron Age enclosure. This line is one of the lines of the Roman road. Okay, so we know where we are. And I spotted this. Okay, can you see those two lines? I had a closer look at that, and basically that is underneath Mannheim car auctions, so the big car auctions. That's their car park. Okay, so there's no way you can see the crop marks anymore because they're buried under concrete. But it's been recorded. Okay, and I thought, hello, that looks interesting. So that's that little plan that I showed you overlaid on Google Earth. Here's Mannheim, here's the car auctions, and this is David Ratledge's line. Okay, so he was a little bit out, but basically that proves that he's in the right place. So I had to bite my tongue, and I hadn't actually said anything to David about this, but I would have not, had I not seen this plan, I would have not said that was where the road was going. I was wrong. Note this field. That's that field. Okay. Again, this is not Google. This is from Apple. Apple also do. If you've got an Apple iPhone or an iPad, you can see these. Look at that. That is 2 parallel ditches. There's a road going off there. There's what looks to be another one coming here. So it's a bit of a crossroads, and then you can see all these ditches. Okay, that looks to me, with my experience, if you like a medieval settlement. And these are what we call crofts and tofts. Okay, so they're just little parcels of land that people are living on. But this is dead in line with the Roman road. The distance between the ditches is around about 14 metres, so it's basically the same. So it's possible that the medieval people had adopted the Roman road and they built the settlement there. Okay, if we go back, you can see it. Nothing. It's just a dead field. And I don't think Beth, I think, has contacted the landowner. The landowner is not aware of it. He's basically sitting on a whole load of archaeology. So that's somewhere which would be very, very interesting to explore. Okay? Once I spotted that, I thought, right, okay, we're on the money here. So this, you can only see this crop mark in this field. The other fields around it, the crop marks don't show. And that's probably just down to agriculture. The plough has gone a bit deeper and it's dug it all out. There's nothing there anymore. But what I managed to do was to follow, on LiDAR again, follow lines which I think probably are the Roman road to. What I'm calling the Wheelie settlement is just there. Can you see it's on a little peninsula? There's the Holland Brook and there's a tributary. And it's just a little bit of higher ground, a perfect spot for a settlement. Good source of water and so on, a bit of defence. If I go on, right, this is another LiDAR view, okay? This is a combination of the 2 different LiDAR views that I've been showing you, okay? And you can see it's slightly different. Again, there's the Wheelie settlement, and if I go one more, right, so what I can do here is go forwards and backwards. So if you look at the line that takes, hopefully you can see, it's very faint, but I'd be saying 50% certain that that's the route of the Roman road. And what I mentioned earlier, all Roman roads are straight. Well, that one isn't. And one of the things that we've found in the Roman Road Association is that there are actually a lot of Roman roads which are nowhere near straight. They are curved. And notice how this one's following the high ground here. The lighter area there, that's high ground. It looks like it's going to curve around, and that's the nose. Okay. Hopefully one day we'll get a chance to investigate that. Okay. Let's talk now about the Via, what we call the Via Misli. This road here has been known about for a long, long time. And this is probably the straightest road in Essex. Okay, this is absolutely dead straight, die straight, it's amazing. And then we've got the other road that everyone thinks is that this road is a junction from that road. It almost certainly isn't, because if you look at the size of the roads and the crossroads here and so on, I think those 2 roads were there at different times. The Romans were here for 400 years. Some of their roads, the military roads for instance, were only used during the campaign, when they invaded. A lot of those roads, I think, went out of use, and then as they settled down, they built other roads. So it's very easy to say, oh yeah, that road comes off there and heads towards Harwich. Well, probably not actually, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. Horsley Cross is here. Okay, Horsley Cross is here, and Horsley Cross Street is there, okay? And that Roman road is here. I hope you can see this. If I go to the next, there you go. Okay, that's quite clear, Okay, that's another thing. Another thing that makes me think this road is later, because it's in better condition, if you like. Whoops. Horsley Cross Street, the road through Horsley Cross Street is there. Okay, so the Roman road is crossing it almost at right angles. Okay, now Horsley Cross Street, the word street is derived from Latin. It comes from Latin via strata, which means a metalled road. Okay, so strata has gradually transmogrified into street. And if you go to Germany, they have Straße, and in Holland they have Straat or Straat. All of these words come from the Roman. So in this country, if you have a place name with the word street in it, that is an indication it's possibly near a Roman road. And this is certainly near a Roman road, because it goes right through the middle of it. And what surprised me a few years ago when I first spotted this is that the Roman road isn't following the modern road. Okay, it's crossing it. So that was a bit of an eye opener for me. So there's the road. Now, before we go on, there are one or two other lines. There's a line up here which looks like it might be a Roman road. If I go on, the brown line there, okay, comes right down here. That is an irrigation pipeline. Okay? We have to be very careful. So there, beware pipelines and bury cables, because they look just like Roman roads. And a clue here is always these manhole covers, because that's where it crosses the road. Okay. Here are the crossroads that I just talked about, which are near Ardley. But that's the Mistley to Colchester Road, and this is the road going off to Horsley Cross Street. You see all these crop marks? Okay. So that, again, I think is a settlement. Not sure whether the HER people know about it, but the interesting thing here is you can't see the Roman roads. If I go forward, okay, that's where the roads are. There's nothing there. Just a very, very slight trace there. Okay. Again, that's something that you often see. Again, it's because of our agriculture and so on. These crop marks, basically probably these ditches and so on are probably deeper, so they're not being ploughed away. Okay, so that's again an interesting point to note. This is I only got onto this about a week ago, so I've been frantically trying to figure out what all this means. But this is a report by Archaeological Solutions. I don't know if you can see, this is Manningtree. Anyway, basically this is our road. This is our road from Mistley towards Colchester. Okay. The archaeologists concluded that the road was an Iron Age trackway and was not Roman. Well, that's interesting. That is actually very interesting, because we, in the Roman Roads Association, we have realised in recent years that some of the Roman roads in this country were built before Claudius invaded in 43 AD. Okay, there are there are reasons for that. It looks like we've got one on Tendring Peninsula. Okay. Now the other thing about the Mistley Road. There we go. So you notice I've got green, light pink, dark pink. Dark pink is known. Light pink is possible. Green is, well, maybe. Okay. And this dotted red line here, what that is the direction that the Mistley Road is going. Okay? Dead straight road, it gets down to Crockleford Heath, if you know it, just there, and then it disappears. Disappears from view, no trace of it whatsoever. And you'll notice it's not actually going to Colchester, it's going past it. Okay? So where is it going? Well, if I extend that line past the Roman town, we get to Gosbecks. Okay? I hope at least some of you know about Gosbecks. Gosbecks is the site of the original Iron Age settlement, the Iron Age oppidum as they call it, of Colchester. So this road has been proven by archaeologists to be Iron Age at the other end, And it's heading towards an Iron Age settlement because the Roman town wasn't there. Okay, this is before the Colchester Roman town was built. This is quite an interesting image. I don't know if you can see it, probably can't, but this is from Colchester Archaeological Trust. Here's Gosbecks. All these green lines are all the dykes, which I'm sure you know about. And here's Colchester Roman town over here. Okay, so it's missing the Roman town. It's going to the Iron Age settlement. If I extend that line, so we're going in an absolute dead straight line, okay? You can do this on Google Earth really, really easily. It's absolutely dead straight. We go past Gosbecks, which is in there somewhere. There's a couple of roads here. I haven't really got time to talk about these, but you see that's coming off the A12, which is a Roman road, and this is coming from Balkan Gate, Colchester. And they look like they're coming down to our red line. I'm not going to call it a road because it isn't a road. There's no road there. All it is, what I'm showing you is the extension of the known road. Okay, this is down to Chelmsford. This orange line is what we call the Great Road. That's a very well-known Roman road which comes out of London and goes all the way to Norwich via Colchester. I think you can see where this line is going now, hopefully. What I've drawn there is a dead straight line, in line with the Mystery Road, past Chelmsford. And it goes up Whitechapel High Street and ends up at Aldgate. Okay? Aldgate in London is the old Roman gateway for the road, this orange road, which goes to Colchester. Okay. Now, I hope you're all following this. This is not a road, okay? It's just a line. All right. This is that line. All I've done here is zoom in to Google Earth. Okay, that's Whitechapel High Street. I'm sure you all know it. And there's Aldgate. And it actually goes on beyond there, but we haven't got time to talk about that. What I think it is, and it almost certainly is what we call a survey line. Okay, this is a line that it was before the Roman invasion, but it would have been done by Roman engineers working with the Britons, the Iron Age people. They put in a survey line all the way from Mistley to London. I'm not a historian, but I am aware that there are people who think that Julius Caesar, who invaded Britain first, about 90 years before Claudius, he had plans and he was going to land on the Stour and make his way towards Colchester. It's pretty certain that Claudius didn't do that, but that was Julius Caesar's plan. And I think there's a big chance that that's how we ended up with this road. Okay? The other clue, just briefly, is that this road is at exactly 60 degrees to north. Okay? So what? Well, that is actually quite significant because the Celts, the Britons, the Iron Age people, whatever you want to call them, knew how to create 60 degrees, 30 degrees, and so on. Very, very basic trigonometry. And they were able to use that to create a line, a survey line, from Mistley to London. That's 65 miles. Okay? How do you create a straight line over 65 miles? Don't know. But that's the sort of thing that they were doing. Interesting. Okay? I can't prove any of this. It might all be just, in my imagination, but I am pretty sure that this is what I'm telling you. Okay? I haven't really shared this with anybody before tonight. I am going to have to share it with others sometime soon. No doubt they will try and shoot me down in flames, but I think I can defend this. I think this is what we are looking at. Okay, press on. Right, as I said earlier, I'm going to spend a little bit of time, I hope you're keeping up with me, talking about, not about the Romans, but about a long time before the Romans. It's a bit of a saga, this, but it will be worth it in the end. This is work that I've been doing in the last week, really. Anyway, all will be coming to it. So last year, I was very privileged to be able to work on this. This is what we call a causeway enclosure. So it's a series, this again is crop marks, or taken from crop marks. It's a series of ditches interrupted, and in between those bits of ditch are what we call causeways. Nobody knows what they're for, but this has been excavated on and off over the last few years by a chap called Professor Tristan Carter. I did some geophysics on this last year, and I thought it would be interesting to look at, again, alignments. I should have said earlier, I've got a qualification in surveying. I've got an O-level in surveying, would you believe? And at the time I thought, why am I doing this? It's actually very, very useful for all the stuff that I'm doing now. So I'm interested in alignments. That is where Freston, Causeway Enclosure is. So that's on the Tendring Peninsula, so it's the next peninsula north from here. So with my surveying qualification, I started to look at alignments from Freston to elsewhere, okay? And it's a long story, but basically I found this place here. This is Hengrave, or sometimes it's called Fornham, Causeway Enclosure and Curses. You can see the crop marks here, absolutely brilliant. And then there's a later or earlier version of it there. And this is Curses. So Curses is like a Roman road, but it's wider, not built by the Romans. This was built in the Stone Age, Neolithic. And it's some sort of processional way. Okay, you've got two ditches marking out this way. They're quite, relatively common. We've got a few of them dotted around Essex. What I discovered was that the curses, this part of the curses at Hengrave, lines up perfectly with Freston. Okay, could be coincidence. Probably is. But it's on the line of the direction of the winter solstice sunrise. Okay? If you don't know what solstice is, then please look it up. It's basically the winter solstice when the sun, you get the shortest day, so the sun rises at its furthest southern extent. Okay? This was a big deal for people in the Stone Age because if the sun didn't stop, solstice means sun stop, if the sun didn't stop moving further and further south, eventually it would disappear and would never rise again. Okay? And it's thought that this is why we get these various monuments lining up. And I'll show you a couple. So, right, before we get to that, we've got a causewayed enclosure and a cursus not far from here, about 3 or 4 miles away. That's St. Osen, okay? Lodge Farm. Okay? I'm sure, well, I know some of you know about this, but probably not many. Here's Lodge Farm, here's the lake, here is the overlay, so that's what's left of the causeway enclosure. Basically, it was dug out, the whole thing was dug out in the 80s or 90s, and it's now a fishing lake. Can you believe it? But anyway, that's what happened. Luckily, the archaeologists came in, recorded it all, they did a great job, so we actually know what was there. Okay? So this is basically the same thing as we saw at Freston and Hengrave, and there are others dotted around. Okay? So, what did I do next? I did the same thing. Okay? Looked at what is along that line. Again, direction of winter solstice sunrise, and you've got Lodge Farm, Irbury Iron Age Camp, which you might know at Clare, Hadnam Causeway Enclosure, Upton Causeway Enclosure, so 2 more causeway enclosures. And this line is within a degree of the sunrise. Okay? Interesting. That's the line, that's from Freston to Hengley. There's another line there. There are several of these actually. Now, this might all be coincidence. I might just be making all of this up, but I don't think it is. I think the fact that it is following the solstice sunrise is significant. I put this in because we had a cultural archaeological group, we had a lecture earlier this year by a lady, Dr. Antonia Thomas, about Orkney. I'm sure many of you will have heard of Maes Howe, how you call it. This is, Maes Howe is a monument, it's like looks like a big mound, but inside, this is the inside of it, okay, and this is the entrance. And at the winter solstice sunset, so not sunrise but sunset, so it's in the opposite direction, the sun shines down here, and this actually is the back of that enclosure, and that's what it looks like. Okay. Not only that, if you look out of that entranceway towards Ward Hill, as the sun sets, so it comes down here, and it goes behind Ward Hill, and then it comes out again. Okay, that's called a reappearing sun. Okay, so this is on the winter solstice sunset. And the effect that causes, if you're in this chamber, if you're lucky enough to be in here on the 21st of December or whatever it is, watching the sun go down, that illuminates and then it goes dark. And then 10 minutes later, it comes back again. Okay? And that's where the sun has gone down. It just appears there, and I'm told that it looks kind of orangey red. And this was only noticed about 20 years ago, because they knew that as the sun set, it illuminated the inside of the chamber. So people, eminent archaeologists and historians would go in there, watch it, and then go down the pub, as you would, okay? So they missed the fact that it actually happened again 10 minutes later. That's the story. Anyway. Why am I telling you all of this? Right, all will be revealed very shortly. Right, this is a place in Essex, not far from here, called Wormingford. Okay? I'm sure you all know Wormingford, or know of it. Hopefully you can see, again, lots and lots of crop marks, rings, and can you see these parallel lines curving across here? You all see that? Mm-hmm. Here is an area which we call Lodge Hills, and this is the sunrise over Lodge Hills on the 21st of December, so it's the winter solstice sunrise, about 8 years ago, something like that. And what this lady, Sally Bartram, noticed was she actually started walking, as the sun came up over Lodge Hill, she started walking down this causeway, okay, which they'd marked out. You can't see it on the ground, so they marked it out with canes, and they started walking, and the sun disappeared. And they got down to about here, you see that they're going in a curve, and the sun came up again. Okay? And it basically, we know it's quite obvious to us that the sun had just gone behind a little rise in the hill, and then it would come back out again, and then of course it carries on rising. But that again is a reappearing sun. And virtually nobody knows about this, but we think that is why that causeway is there, and why it's curved, because you're walking along and you see the sunrise, and then you carry on a bit, and it disappears, and then it comes up again a little bit further over to the west. I've never seen it. I've been there 4 times on the morning of the 21st of December, pitch black, and it's cloudy, and you can't see it. One day I'm going to see it, and I'm going to film it. I put there a eureka moment. This happened to me 5 days ago, I think. I was looking at this, because I've been looking at this as a project for CAG with somebody else, nothing to do with Jerwick. And I'm looking at the crop marks on Google Earth, and there's this big pink line here. So that's a pink line that I put there, but I think, what on earth is that? What's that doing there? You've probably guessed. That's where the Wormingford cursus is, and the pink line is the line from Lodge Farm, too many lodges, Lodge Farm, all the way up here to, I can't remember where, the Hadnam or wherever it is. Okay? I couldn't believe it. That's that pink line, that dead straight line lined up with the solstice is going right up the processional way, or the cursus, whatever you want to call it, at Wormingford. Okay, I mean that I think is very, very significant. Note the short green line here, and you probably can't see it, but I extended that line, okay? So this is the line through Wormingford, through Lodge Farm, the Causeway enclosure. I just extended it in green, in a dead straight line, lining up with the solstice. Here it is. So there's Lodge Farm. There's our line, which is going off towards Wormingford. There's the green line. There's Cornerfield. Cornerfield is where we've been doing geophysics recently. Okay. This is what we found. These are the magnetometer results. It's not very clear. I haven't got time to explain to you what magnetometry is, but can you see a kind of circle there? I'll go back. Okay. That is something under the ground in Cornerfield down here. So that's the field opposite the 3J's pub. And whatever that is, it lines up exactly with our alignment here. Okay, I mean, I can't believe it, I'm sure you can't. You probably think I'm making all this up, but this is a dead straight line, okay? And it lines up with that. If I carry on, this is Cornerfield, 3J's here, Cornerfield, that's the scout hut. This is where our circle is that we found on magnetometry, and this is LiDAR, okay? So what that's showing is that a bank there, and a bit of a bank there. Unfortunately, the south bit of it is disappearing into the hedge, and then a lower bit here. And if I go on, there you can see, okay, that's how it all lines up. So that's the circle. Go back. See how it all overlays pretty accurately. 50 meters diameter. So, yeah, I'll put there. I've had this checked by a couple of experienced geophysicists. Okay, so this is not just me. It is actually there. And last week, I spoke to a lady that I know very well, who's an expert on the Bronze Age, and I said, we've got this circle, 50 meters diameter, what on earth could it be? And she said, oh, it's a henge, isn't it? Oh, it can't be a burial line because it's too big. 50 meters, you imagine 50 meters, what's that, 160 feet, it's massive, okay? So, just a very brief summary here. Henge or hengiform monument, it's going to be late Stone Age or Bronze Age. Too big to be a mineral mound. The LiDAR shows the possible outer banks. See? And it's not a complete circle. Also, you can see there. The circle's quite well defined there, but up the top looks like a gap. There's a lot of gubbins going on in the middle there as well, but I don't know what that might be. There's another similar one at Great Whitborough, which is just west of Mersey Island, and that's what that looks like. That's a crop mark. That is 46 metres diameter. So it's very, very similar in size and shape to what we've got. This is Arbor Low, so that's much more complete. Obviously, that hasn't been ploughed out or anything. This is in Derbyshire. I just found this on the internet to sort of show you roughly what it might have looked like. Okay, I don't know whether it did look like this, but if it was a henge, there's a fair chance it would have looked like this. So there's a bank, interrupted, and a bank. The ditch is on the inside. That's what marks a henge out from a defended enclosure. If you're defending an enclosure, the ditch goes on the outside of the bank. The ditch is on the inside. This has got stones, so there was obviously a stone circle there at one time. There almost certainly wasn't a stone circle in Jaywick because there's no stone, but there might well have been wooden posts or something like that. We don't know. So that is what we've been doing down at Jaywick recently, and this literally only came to light in the last few days. So I've been a busy boy doing this, but I really wanted to share it with you. I hope you've all followed it. Thanks for listening, and it's nice to think that there might have been a henge, something like that, down in Jaywick at one time or another. We'll never be able to prove it, but there you go. Thank you very much.